All right, let's get into the article. Domination 101. If you guys haven't been here for all these other articles, I should warn you, you're going to get called a scrub. And you're not going to like it. So be very careful. He's going to talk a lot of shit about you and or your friends and or someone. So anyway, mental toughness. What does it take when you get shot in Sajam's chat by his mods? It takes a lot more than just strategy and execution. Winning a tournament requires more than just strategy and execution. It requires being able to look past all the distractions. It requires being able to grit your teeth and come back from what looks like an insurmountable lead. It's being able to consistently stay on top of your game and face down the best players in the country, and that takes mental toughness. This is almost invariably overlooked by scrubs. It's not something that you can see on a video, and it's often the missing ingredient that keeps otherwise excellent players from having any real shot at winning where it counts. That is so true. Can you guys think of players that should win tournaments all the time, and then in the heat of the moment at like the top, right before they win, they crumble? The more experienced player always gets the W. That kind of stuff happens so often. Maintaining your focus is essential, and here's a few of the most common pitfalls. The not so fresh feeling. Tournaments are almost tailor-made to sap your strength. It's true. The venues are always loud. There's always people bumping into you. The lights are annoying. People smell, and you're there for between 10 to 15 hours straight. That doesn't change. One thing about tournaments, and this is kind of improved over time, there's a lot of times where you end up playing back-to-back blocks, or you have a day where you're playing 2, 3, 4 things, and it's mentally draining for sure. You know that when you go to a tournament that is big, right, a regional or a major event, you end up being there for forever. You're in the ballroom all day long on your feet, and you're like, all right, I guess I got to play my next match. That's when you get to sit down and your feet get to rest. You haven't eaten anything all day. You're scared to eat. You know, a lot of people don't eat before tournament matches. I never eat before tournament matches or before commentary generally, unless I have like a while, right, like an hour or two beforehand. And you can't bring in food into the venue a lot of the times anyway, or you don't have snacks. You just, there's not a lot to go around, so you don't want to pay $15 to buy a fucking pretzel inside the venue. That shit sucks. It's not a good feeling. Every hardcore player has at some point felt that deep sense of burnout you get from playing a little or a lot too long. You slip into a minor coma, unable to do anything but the same stupid, ineffective thing you did 2 seconds before. This happens a lot in pools, I feel like, too. Players talk about how you have to have strong mental energy, and in pools, you want to try to get through without having to think too much. This is actually a non-minor problem for a lot of intermediate players. When you miss a certain move, especially fireballs, you're seized up by the urge to prove to yourself, to anyone watching, God knows, that you can do the move, as if anybody really doubted it. How many people have done this in their life? Have you ever tried to wake up DP and you missed it and it didn't come out and you were so mad that you just did it again? You go for some crazy combo, it doesn't work, and you immediately jump in again because you're like, I need to hit that combo. It's like you've got some ridiculous reputation that you have to defend. You'd be amazed at how many otherwise smart, competent players will immediately try another fireball. This is something that you have to recognize. I've recognized when I play against people too. Sometimes someone next to me in a match will try to do something and they'll miss it, and I'll just wait for them to do it again. It's so hard to shake yourself of that. It's as though they've deviated from the mental script they had of how the match was supposed to look and can't proceed until they get that part right. If you've thought about it for even half a second, you realize this is a dumb play. That's exactly what you don't do when you're burned out. If you guys are playing fighting games online, because that's all you can do right now, you will hit a point where you burn out. My brain is so over, I can't handle it anymore, and your decision making just gets awful. At that point, you kind of need to take a break, right? The kinds of decisions you make will be bad, and at that level, you're not really improving or getting better. Your brain just can't handle it anymore. There's only so much you can soak up. Eventually, your brain is kind of just over it. It needs to rest. It needs to recuperate, come back, and relearn what's going on. If you don't have to think to win, you can stay loose and fresh. Mental fatigue is a very real, though often overlooked, danger. Another reason that tournament footage isn't always the stellar display you might expect. People are burned out. They've been there for 10 plus stress-filled hours. Having a strong autopilot is like being able to play through a match against an opponent without having to think and just doing the most basic, obvious stuff for you. Your hands know how to do it. Your brain doesn't have to think. You know the matchup like the back of your hand. There's no additional extra thoughts required. It's just muscle memory and just doing stuff. That's what happens when you're a strong player playing against someone who's probably weaker than you, and you can just autopilot and beat them. Having to actually sit there and think and measure against a strong opponent, that's when your brain gets tested. And the less that has to happen in tournament, the longer and better you can play. Please note, if you are a scrub, this technique is not for you. It requires not only having a game plan, but also having a secondary, simpler, yet still effective game plan. It's also a perfect example of why you don't necessarily want to be flashy. If you want to win by any means necessary, you first have to realize exactly what is necessary. If you have some stupid pattern that's killing the opponent, don't bother doing anything else. If you're playing against an opponent, you probably shouldn't adjust too early if they don't show any signs of adapting. Something that a lot of people struggle with is they expect their opponents to change their game plan, and they just don't. They keep doing the exact same thing over and over. Until your opponent shows they can think, don't assume they can think. Sometimes you'll run into players or opponents who are technically very sound. They have great combos, they have great setups, they understand what you're doing as a character, but they just have bad habits and they cannot change their playstyle. In shooters, right, they call it all aim, no brain. You know, they don't understand the other stuff about the game very well, but they can shoot you if they see you. It's much easier to learn the technical aspect than the actual other parts of the game, you know what I mean? Because you can just go to training mode and learn a combo, right? But learning and understanding like decision making, how to play neutral against a character, when and where you should stand or move or jump or block or, you know, all those kinds of things, those come with experience and they're very difficult to figure out without having experience against another player, right? Those come with time. People who are new to fighting games or people who don't play fighting games think it's the reverse, where it's so difficult to learn combos, it's so tough to learn execution. I got to learn 50 million combos and then after that I can start playing the game. Like, the hard part of the game is never the combos. So yeah, anyway, he gets back to the point of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is also the added bonus of driving people absolutely nuts, causing them to play even worse, making more mistakes, getting angry, and so on. A vicious spiral. If you can feel your opponent next to you in tournament or something, or you can see it on the screen when you're playing someone who's getting frustrated, you know it's over. Mentally, they're out of it. And I know at this point, I got him in the bag. It's over. Not only does this help you preserve brain power, it also minimizes the chances of anything traumatic happening that might haunt you later. How could I have been so stupid? Bad idea. You're taking a mistake, which is already bad, and making it even worse by focusing on it. Yeah. A lot of times when you ask like players after a match is over, what happened that went wrong, they're like, I don't even remember the match. I was so focused on what was happening, I don't even recall what happened. I was focused on trying to win. You know, you can't be so upset about mistakes that you make in the match. You just have to be like, okay, next time I gotta do this. You gotta think about the next situation, right? It's hard to do, but it's good advice. The same thing goes for when you pull some lucky win out of your butt. Don't sit around punishing yourself for not having earned it. I only won because he missed his DP. If you believe you don't deserve to advance, you're likely to prove it by losing in the next match. This is good tournament advice for sure. It's very difficult to contextualize stuff like this without having experienced it. Luck, or the simple failure of your opponent to execute, is a real part of every tournament. Be happy when it goes your way. Major pitfall number 3, worrying about the future. While this probably isn't something that you think about if you've never been to a tournament, once you get there, it's easy to get preoccupied. Have you ever seen people who are like, oh man, if I win my first 2 matches, I gotta play against Daigo. Man, how am I going to beat Daigo? And you're like, bro, who gives a fuck about that? Focus on your match and the next match and the next match. It's super common that people are like, oh my God, if I win 7 matches in a row, I'll be in grand finals. Oh gosh, chill, bro, chill. You might lose before you make it there and someone else might lose. Sure, you may be freaked out that Dominator number 47 is in your bracket, but if you spend energy worrying about it, you're handing him a big advantage before the match even starts. Lots of people psych themselves completely out. While it's true that these players have their reputations for good reason, it isn't true that they've got some kind of magic powers or they're going to pull out some secret move that kills you instantaneously. Actually, even if that was true, worrying about it would still only make things worse. It's true, man. You gotta just focus on playing your match. Most of the time when people beat some really good player and they ask them like, what was going through your mind? You had to play Diego Juarez. Like, what were you thinking? They're like, well, you know, it's just another player and I wanted to beat him and I played my game and I played well. That's like always the answer. Concentrate on the match you're playing, and beyond that, your next opponent at most. If you know who you're going to play in bracket, it's worth looking at their matches to see who they play, how they play. If there's somebody in your bracket that you're unfamiliar with or a character you're unfamiliar with, it's worth watching matches and stuff to try to, you know, get ready for your pool, doing a little bit of studying. Knowing that scrub number 212 plays Ken, and nothing but Ken may be very helpful. I had an Evo pool. On one side of the bracket was me. On the other side of the bracket was Alucard and Kai, the El Fuerte player, right? This is a Street Fighter bracket. And there's a Dawson, Texas player who I knew was very good, right? And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm going to have to play Alucard. And Alucard's either going to play Balrog or he's going to play like Hugo or something, right? And I was like, okay, I'm pretty comfortable in both of those matchups with Elena. It's not that bad. I'm not that concerned. And as the match was going, I was watching and I saw this Dawson player. He plays well and he beats Alucard. So then I'm like, sick. I'm gonna like Dalsum. This is a dope matchup for me, right? So then he ended up playing Kai, right? The El Fuerte player, and obviously El Fuerte versus Dalsum, destruction. So then I end up playing Kai in the finals of the pool. If I had spent all of my mental energy before the pool started, thinking to myself, damn, I gotta play Alucard. What am I gonna do against Hugo? What am I gonna do against Balrog? What am I gonna do about, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have played my side of the bracket well. I didn't know who I was gonna have to play, but Alucard is someone who's, you know, he top 8 at a bunch of tournaments. He's a very good player. Everybody, you know, you just assume he's gonna make it out. He loses to a Dalsum, and that Dalsum player beats Kai. Now I'm playing El Fuerte in winners finals of my pool. We played in the match. I won, so I made it out. It was a super close match. And then in losers, he played Alucard and beat Alucard because he was such a troll. They went 1-1 and they tied, and he was just cracking. They got a draw game, and he was cracking up laughing about playing another match. And he was so nonchalant and loose and trolly, and I think it got to Alucard. You're at Evo fighting against a good El Fuerte player who is just trolling and laughing and just being silly, and that kind of mentality in tournament is very tough to deal with. There's a lot on the line, you know what I mean? It's a lot. And Kai won. They played 4 matches in a 2 out of 3 because of the time. As important as it is to think about the heavy hitter in your pool, you got to make it there first. And pools are tough, man. The chances of you just running into all bad players or something that you can just dumpster, not likely. There's a great chance you're going to run into strong players. Anyway, back to this real quick. Advanced tip, try to have at least potentially alternate characters or teams. Avoid being a one-trick pony unless you're a mighty, terrifying pony of death. I think that before this was probably true. These days, you know, in most games, you can just play what you want to play. Having multiple characters can be nice, but it depends on the kind of player you are. Some people are quite good at playing multiple characters. Some people cannot do it. Even if it may open you to a slight mismatch, you want maximum execution, and playing with your character is the easiest way to make that happen. Yeah, counterpicking someone is quite hard, I think, if you're not really, really prepared for it. Don't rely on someone else's rankings to decide your teams for you. Just because the theorists on SRK have decided that X beats Y doesn't mean you can't win. Note, this doesn't mean I think rankings are worthless, quite the contrary. It's just pointing out that rankings assume evenly matched players playing at full capacity, which is obviously not what you get in every tournament match. Yeah, especially in tournament where it's a short set. You can blow someone out in a tournament set before they even know what your character's doing. It's not uncommon. Playing your character also vastly decreases chances of being paralyzed when you're put into an unfamiliar situation. The hesitation that anything else brings will cost you, for sure. To maintain mental toughness, you want to stay fresh, be in the moment, and stick with what you know. Focus on your match, and you can hold on to the motivation required to win. At Electric Cancel, I was so obsessed that my second round opponent was fighting GM, and he missed his flight and got DQ'd, and I went 0-2. You were so prepared. You're grinding against Lee for like 40, million hours. You're like, I got this. I got a Lee or Geese. And then round 1, you play some Oscar player and you're like, oh no. You really have to just focus on the matches you're playing. And, for tournaments, showing up fresh helps. Sleep, grab a snack beforehand or like some coffee, show up ready, show up feeling well, play your best, and that's all you can ask for. If you play it to your best of your ability and you lose, ain't nothing to be upset about. Listen, I got a message once on Twitter that was like, hello, I like watching your stream. My son is in the background. Can you not curse more? And I'm like, either 1, you got to put in headphones, or 2, you got to teach your kid that sometimes you got to call someone a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. I curse a lot. It's my stream, brother. That's what I do. Amen. Bitch.